Welcome to TG2M with KayeCeeOz, your #1 destination for personal and business relationship advice, tips, interviews, and
like Hunter boots, we brought those into America, and that just blew up. Like, it was Kate Moss wearing them at the festivals, and it just happened right under our umbrella. And it was like, all of a sudden, Nordstrom is 219 stores, distribution. We want, $1 million in goods every 2 weeks, and now you're talking about container shipments coming in.
Wow.
And I mean, it's overwhelming. You're like, oh, you want to go into every single store? Okay, great. This is gonna be fun. And it's a lot. But you got to control that distribution.
Okay.
And make sure it's successful. And how do you do that? They wanted us to plan all their distribution into each store. Like me, like this, my team and I. How do we know? I mean, don't they have people that are going to put those? Their whole team was confused on how to make it happen. I learned a lot through that, but. It's overwhelming. You're dropping in $1 million every 2 weeks. They took that brand right away from us real quick. They're like, "You're making more money than the president." I'm like,
wow.
okay, well, you can come on board as VP and drop your showrooms or drop us. Like,
right.
oh. So it's like a very emotional thing too.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sure everybody, but
I'll bet, right?
It's hard when you work really hard and then they grow up and they're like, okay, we're gonna open up our showroom, our own showroom now.
Right.
And you get it. That'll kill your brand, like in a nutshell, because now you got to liquidate all that old inventory, and now you're gonna put all your brand out there as a discounted brand without having full price product out there because you can't afford your next collection. So
right.
I saw so many like, can you clean up this project for me? And I was kind of really like, some of them I was really passionate. The teams that we'd be really passionate about, but it was kind of always a kiss of death. Like, you got to get the right people behind you at the beginning. And you guys, I think they would pay like $50,000 for a sample collection 4 times a year. That's $200,000. I'm sorry, you just asked the factory to make you the samples because based on your samples, having them on time for your selling season, you're going to bring them X, Y, and Z in inventory. This is your sales plan, and this is how you're going to get there. They're going to be like, okay, well, we'll make you the samples. We're not going to charge you. But nobody tells them this because the showroom will refer the factory, and they get a cut from the factory. It's like, and for me, I just want to see when they're talented, I want to see them get up and running quickly without the overhead. It doesn't cost me anything. I'm not taking money off the top of what the factories can make, but I know the ins and outs of like what you need to get the job done without paying all that extra money.
Okay.
And then on top of the factories, like, if they're saying, okay, we need 6,000 pairs of this, you're like, okay, well, I have 60 pairs. It's like, well, they're like, we're not going to, our minimums, we told you this at the beginning. Well, how do you expect me to grow a business? I need you to make those 60 pairs. I need you to make them on time, as agreed upon. And next season, it'll grow, and it'll grow, and it'll grow. So you're kind of always beating each other up, trying to remind each other that it's going to be okay. Tell your factory, and usually the designers are dealing with the factory, but then they kind of lose their minds about it, and so we always step in. But the whole thing is customer service too. You got to deal with all of it, every department, as far as credit and logistics and customers and everybody. And it just is like your customer needs to be solid. Customer service, customer manager, that one person that just holds it all together.
So what are 5 elements that would equate to successful marketing and sales?
Well, 5 things, I guess, would be, besides your own conceptual ideas, which is really going to make you.
Okay. So your own conceptual ideas, okay.
Yeah, and I mean, also, you're depending, like, do you want to be contemporary, do you want to be designer or luxury? Because contemporary, I don't know, I don't think a lot of people know this, but contemporary is very different than designer.
Okay.
There are 2 different looks. You're talking about a kind of a younger girl you're talking about chunkier heels and, like, your designer luxury woman is more refined. It's like fine jewelry, and but not to say that, Dior, who's known for very bulbous, very accentuated, like a lot of colors and big rhinestones and things, they're amazing with that. But
right.
That doesn't make them not like designer.
Mm-hmm.
That it's much more contemporary. So you want to make sure that you're deciding what you want to be, contemporary designer. Because once you go,
okay.
if you want to be contemporary, and then you decide in a couple of years you want to be designer, you don't go up. it always stays, or then you off label it or private label it or whatever.
Okay.
But then, you have to follow the trends. Pantone colors are super important, and you have to, like, if you're not, look at the market. It's so disgusting, and this was another reason I kind of was, like, happy to step out of it for a second. Mm-hmm. If I see one more sneaker or one more booty or one more Birkenstock, I'm going to, like, puke. Like, it's out of control.
Okay.
It's everywhere.
Right.
Every form, every brand's doing it. It's like, please. It's been going on for almost 5 years now. I could vomit. And this is what works, So and as annoying as it is, probably for designer too, and I see all my designers do this. They don't want to do it. They don't want to do trendy things. And that's really your money's going to, the volume of business is going to be. Because that's what, you look at the magazines on the newsstand, and everybody's got bangs, the women. It's like, what do you think's happening when the woman gets a haircut? Everybody's got bangs that year. Or whatever it is. It's just, we're all kind of brainwashed. So you've got to follow those trends because they're putting a lot of money into brainwashing us. So you might as well jump on board.
Got it.
It's free advertisement, kind of.
Okay.
I don't know, distribution's important, but...
Distribution, okay.
You've got to, 5 things that are... I don't know, it's more about, it's so funny. I work with some designers that are so fucking talented. You're like... Okay, so you just sent this amazing collection, and give me some, something to chew on, so I can relate it to the team. So when they put it in front of the buyers, they could share the story. Oh, fuck you! It's like, go fuck yourself. Like, I'm not sharing that information with you. If you can't figure it out, then you can't run my brand.
Right. Oh,
okay, there's nothing. You're not going to give me anything. Nope. Okay. They just become so, passionate, but
right.
I don't know. They're design. Creative is just a whole different beast. So you got to find a balance with it all.
Well, so that's to me that sounds, because you see that same thing in filmmaking. That becomes your baby. So it's like, oh, I'm connected to this. You can't tell me whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So what would you say? Like, you had a brain of a designer that was empty. And you could go in and you could fill it in with everything that you wanted to. I think you've already said some of the things already, but
sometimes we just have to do things behind your back. No, and I mean that.
What are some of the things you guys do?
Oh well,
because you're helping them in the long run, and they just don't know it.
They don't if you try to take a stiletto, and let's say Saks Fifth Avenue wants to have one style or 2 styles on their floor that nobody else is going to have, that they're willing to hit the factory minimums, and they're going to take another leather from another style, which we already know we can source because it's within the collection. So on the flat over here, we want that leather on the stiletto. Okay, we're going to do red and we're going to do gold, and nobody else is going to get it, and they're going to hit the minimums. They freak out. They really do. I didn't design that. I don't want that in the collection. I'm like, you're going to make sure you fill this order, and you again have to explain it to the designers why that is so important. But they do really get upset a lot of times about how the sales teams, how we go about kind of restructuring the product. But it's really up to the buyers,
Right.
You have to kind of hear what they have to say and what they're looking for. Okay. And sometimes you're like, that's not going to sell, and you're going to fight to have it something that is comparable between the design. I don't know. You're just always working on that middle ground. Yes. And then, I had one designer, Camilla Skogard, and she had this wedge booty. It was a booty. One season, we hit the minimums with the factory and went back out. And I couldn't have predicted this quite, but I just knew something about that booty needed to be her, her main ingredient, her staple item. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I don't want that design. I don't want that booty back in the collection. I'm like, oh yeah, we're putting it back in the collection. Nope. We fight tooth and nail over this darn style. I was like, Camilla, okay, fine. So I told the team, I'm like, put the booty back in the collection. Everybody sell the fuck out of it. Let's get it. This is gonna be, it's priced right. It's just gonna leave the collection. Yes. This booty took off and was her main ingredient for 7 years. Of course it
did.
And she still's like, I told you I didn't want that. I hate that booty. And she has to redesign it 4 times a year for me. I was like, you're not complaining when you go buy your new
So you're like the Diane Warren of fashion, because you know how they always hear Whitney Houston didn't want to sing certain songs, or Celine Dion didn't want to sing certain
Yeah.
Beautiful. I love it.
Do some things a little off the beaten track.
I love that.
You do get the pleasure of working with some really cool brands like Ted Baker. London Footwear I brought to America.
Nice.
They had a small team going, and they're all men shoe dogs.
Right.
I call them. they weren't doing their jobs. They weren't like, oh, we just spent $40,000 for a booth in Las Vegas, and you're supposed to have Bloomingdale's and yada 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 on the schedule, and you say they are, and then I call them to say, I just want to make sure, and then we're gonna have a budget in place, and I'm gonna be in the meeting. We don't have an appointment with you, So so I come in and wipe them all out and start over. Well, the shoe industry was very male dominated for a very long time.
I believe it.
Yeah,
I believe it.
I think for the most important thing is it's an organic process.
Yes.
You cannot force it, and even if it is forced with that luckiness of having one of those fluke things, you better make sure that you at least know these factories, like, can they produce, how many units can they produce a day or a month? Like, so if it does blow up, you kind of know, like, you're playing with the right factory too.
Got
and
it.
you have a second factory always in the backup.
Yes.
Because you never know what can happen. They could be audited by Hugo Boss, and all of a sudden the factory's got child labor laws, and you're smacked down, and your product's not getting made by that factory because your product's actually going to Saks Avenue, who's publicly traded on Wall Street. And if publicly traded on Wall Street finds out that they're having child issues, labor laws, they're going to shut that business down just like that. So you got to make sure you know who you're doing business. It's like really, like, there's so many little complications to it.
Wow.
But it should be that way. I mean,
right.
But I mean, but with Saks would be like, okay, we want to do an audit with your factory, and we're like, first of all, the factory's going to kick us out of there because they don't want to be audited, and they're not going to want to deal with us.
Right.
So they're going to be like, fuck out of our factory,
Right.
And now you're trying to save the factory, you're trying to save the audit. Well, how are you going to do that? There's a way.
Wow.
And it's just complicated. So many different avenues. You wouldn't think that, you don't know until you actually, for me anyways, nobody told me all these different avenues I'd explore and learn, and all it is you
learn
find
by
a solution.
doing.
All you can do is find a solution.
That's true. Okay.
In general, like, everybody practices good business.
Good to hear.
Yeah, like somebody on my team once suggested we get a Rolex from one of my men buyers for Ted Baker on the men's side. I won't say what company, but
right.
And I was like, are you out of your mind? Like, first of all, that's against the law. And second, like, there's so many reasons why that is wrong. Like, I get the whole concept.
For my listeners, like, why is that wrong? Like,
I get the whole concept. Like, how can a Rolex watch, like, as a gift really hurt? Like,
right.
You're becoming friendly. Everybody's, like, whining and dining. And what's the difference with a Rolex watch? Well, what I think it comes down to is, like, well, if I bribe that person with a Rolex watch,
right,
and they take me up my bribe, well, what did I just do to somebody that isn't me, that maybe is in the same situation I am? I'm trying to grow a brand. I'm trying to get space on the retail floor. And somebody just gave this buyer a Rolex watch, which bumped me off until maybe a year from now. So that's what it is. It's not fair. It's not fair playing to everybody else.
I see.
So I was like morally, like, like compass on the shoulder and all.
Okay.
It just that doesn't work. Like,
got it.
And it's just you're taking from other people.
Got it.
And that's not how you grow a business. Because I was already in a place where the business was growing nicely. And what if he said no and that was it, and they never did business with you again? Because that would have been the offshot of that, like, happening.
Right.
And now what am I going to tell the design Ted Baker London? What am I going to tell them? Oh, I tried to bribe the buyer for a bigger budget.
Right.
How's that going to sound in the end? So no good.
Got it.
So it's already going, it's growing. You cannot force it with things like that.
Got it.
You can, but I think it'll come back and bite you.
Got it.
That's just, don't do that, because somebody will find out, and then people start talking, and you don't want that. Your reputation is everything. I think you have to protect that and do right by it.
I like that.
Before you sit down with the buyer, you need to negotiate your terms up front. If it be an independent, they're buying 60 pairs. If it be Amazon buying 600 pairs, 6,000 pairs, I need to know my terms going in. So, okay, well, your terms are going to be 9% co-op, 1% damage, so you're 10% off the top. So that needs to be reiterated back to your designer, because they're actually, handling their own cash flow. Okay. The terms, like, I find, like, almost every single person on my sales team that you train or that's been in sales, they don't negotiate terms. They'll spend, like, months or hours, like, writing the PO, cultivating that order, and all of a sudden they'll turn it in, and they want this order to be processed with the factory. Well, what terms did you negotiate? Well,
right.
We're gonna give them net 30. I'm like, who says who? No. So they don't. You just have to stand really firm, and you got to always work your terms in your advantage as well.
Right.
Like for Amazon, it's like we're an emerging company. Like this poor designer's trying to get their feet up under themselves. They need help at the beginning. Maybe we can renegotiate the terms in a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever.
Right.
So how about we take 2% off of the top 1% damage allowance instead of net 90 terms. That's going to really mess with our cash flow. We need net 15. So we can turn that money right back around, put it back into the next collection, bring your next delivery in on time. So would you please have management consider making our terms? So negotiating those terms with anything and everything in life.
Right.
Pretty much, I mean, if you ask, you can get whatever you want. It's like your credit card. It's like you can get your... If you call them right now, it'd probably drop 20 points, you know?
Right.
All I have to do is pick up the phone and call them. And they're like, oh, okay, we'll drop that. Okay, well, thanks for making me call you to ask.
Right, I just called something the other day, yes.
But terms are everything.
Yes.
So you cannot be afraid to ask for them. And if they're like, well, it might be, you know, Chucky's in New York City has 2 stores and everybody wants to be in his, you know, amazing boutiques.
Right.
Yeah, well, we want net 30 terms. No, we're going to need 30% deposit and 70% when the goods land in the United States and before we ship to you. We need full payment. What? We're not going to do that. We work with buyers and they get the terms from, you know, whatever, Michael Kors, whoever. Well, they've been in business for a long time, and you just have to stand your ground and be like, this is emerging designer.
Right.
You know, you're going to have a product that's not readily available as we grow at the beginning, and we're going to grow together.
Nice.
So you kind of always like, that's really, really important.
Okay.
So many people are afraid to ask or talk about it. Like, I don't know.
That's a good point. That's
Yeah.
I love
you
that.
You want to buy the car? Well, okay, but the car is $5,000. Well, are you not going to tell them the price? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how are you going to pay for that? Oh, you're going to send... So it's just like, okay, well, everything... I want $5,000 cash, and I need it, like, today. If you want the car before... You know,
right.
Whatever it is, the terms need negotiated. I mean, it was $1 million POs run. They were just coming off the fax machine. Like, I was like, woohoo! We're going to the bar to celebrate afterwards, you know. Let's open a bottle of champagne. It was very exciting. And the contract I had happened so fast. And it was like, I was on a plane to Seattle, like, that day. And it was no joke. It just happened, like, in seconds. But they needed that contract signed before I got on the plane. I looked at it myself, and I signed it very quickly. I did not send it over to my lawyer, Tanya. Big mistake. So after 5-6 months, when the contract was null, I was like, okay, well, I'll just float off of, like, I was still excited. I was still going to get my commissions on the goods that were shipped. Paid goods. That's how I negotiated my terms. I don't want to be paid for something. I'm not going to put the company in any red as well. I'm not going to take an order that I'm going to tell you it's net 30, and I don't know if that person's going to buy it because I don't know anything about their paying history.
Right.
So you're, the designer, that's $6,000 that they don't receive when those goods land. That really messes up their cash flow at the beginning. So your terms are important because of those reasons too. But
right.
Obviously,
contracts and everything.
The contracts, yes. So the contract had one sentence in there that said, when the contract was nulled and voided, all commissions were as well. And I had signed it.
Girl,
I didn't get
my
out of bed.
contracts
I didn't
look
get out of bed
like
for,
the
like, a
Constitution with extra shit on the side
how they
because
should.
I write shit on it.
Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
That was the only time, and the last time I made that mistake. Because it looked like a very standard contract to me. And
Right.
It just was that last sentence at the very end. So when I sent in my first, I sent it into the company. I was like, oh yay, 15% on $1 million POs. Do the math. Plus I had, we were looking at just commissions was over $1 million.
Right.
Gone. They sent me an email back with it circled that last sentence that I signed the contract. They're like, null and voided based on the contract you signed. What I found out.
They knew.
What I
They
found
knew,
out
man.
4 years and like 3 months later, I was talking to Tanya. She's like, Angelique, I vaguely remember all this happening, but you were so busy we didn't really get into it because I had never reviewed the contract. She goes, and I was in New York, and she's like, when was that dated, by the way? And I go, I don't know. It's been about 4 years. She goes, there's a law in the state of California that will protect you for 4 years to go back and fight for that money. Get your booty home
your
and
money.
Get that contract and tell
Yes.
me if it's up to 4 years. She goes, we can go back and claim those commissions for you.
Yes.
By law. Like, you were
Yes.
entitled to those. You did the work.
Those are predatory contracts.
And it was 4 months and 4 years and 3 months. And
No.
something, and she's like, you can't touch it. I was like,
Damn
it's like
it.
the pain all over again.
Right. But that hope, and then now you know.
But yeah, and hopefully people learn through my not knowing, but that's like law in the Constitution. Like, all the little loopholes and things that you can really, if you just study it and know it works for your advantage, but not to take advantage of I was basically taken advantage of, quite honestly.
Yes. Well, it happens to women a lot. What was the phrase that was in that contract again?
That said, the hunter?
Yeah, the one.
When I lost my commissions?
Yeah.
It was basically any commissions would be null and void, payable to my company once if there was a termination or a let go or if we didn't move forward. So.
One of my mentors told me, you have to, don't always look at it from your standpoint. Look at it what each person is going to gain.
Yeah.
You know, he literally had like a little wheel and it showed each person like their title. What will they gain from each thing? You know, so if they cut you out, what will they gain? If they keep you in, what will they gain? Those kind of things. And you start seeing it like, oh, wait, hold on a minute. Let me read this thing till it can't be read anymore.
Right. Well, any good sales manager, because when I started my company, and it all kind of just happened organically, learning as you go, but
right.
if I was building teams for like Ted Baker, I would build into my contracts, okay, well, I'm hiring you, and you're going to be paid 8%, but I'm going to take 2% on top of you.
Right.
You don't know that, but it's not important. If it was brought up, I'm not going to lie about it.
Oh, you didn't tell them?
No.
They didn't ask?
No. So, but no, I'm building that with my managing directors.
I see.
So my goal is to make sure that person's successful and has all the tools they need to be successful. So all of a sudden I have more interest in what they're doing as far as moving the business forward.
Oh, yeah.
And with that push comes my little 2% on top of...
For sure. Get paid for it. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? You just ask these managing directors, you're like, I want my 2% on top of making sure that they do their job. They're like, we're already paying you to do your job. Well, I want paid commission because that's what sales is about.
Yes.
So... being in sales, like there's no ending to how much money you can make. There's no way impossible you can make, $500,000, $1 million, just on one account, like, throughout the year. Plus you start adding, like if you have a multi-line showroom and you have brands that all are like amazing brands, but one might be welly boots, one might be stilettos, one might be a contemporary brand, a men's brand. That buyer can come in and buy all those brands from you, which is a great balance for the showroom because you don't have like money being taken from this stiletto brand to this stiletto brand. And
right.
They're all kind of like they want to see each other be successful, but they want to be the most successful. So finding a balance for a multi-line showroom, you can make so much money if you can make it happen right. And it's a simple blueprint for success, really. Sales terms, right product, making sure things ship on time. And you just have cool people you work with, I guess.
That's the fifth one. You just literally just listened. Beautiful.
It helps
Thank you, Angelique. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. You're lovely.